Hi, this is Kimberly. To go straight to the videos I've selected for you today, there are timestamps in the description box below the video. Not only to get past this talking of mine, but also to skip over what bores you and find the stories that interest you. All of the stories are timestamped. Much love and peace. Enjoy. So, for those of you that are still with me, hi, how are you today? Most of the stories I found for this video today seem to focus on Brian Laundrie's infuriating parents. They need their faces slapped. That's probably why Doc the bounty hunter showed up unannounced at their house. I wish they had been dumb enough to answer the door. God, that would have been good. They're dumb, but they're stubborn as shit, too. And how can they do this to the young woman's memory that was going to be in their family? She would have given their ugly asses some beautiful grandchildren. I'm tired of messing with dumbasses. That reminds me. Scribble, you have not emailed me yet. But don't you think it would be funny if they called the police to complain? Hey, there's a bunch of people hanging out in front of our house, and now Doc the bounty hunter's banging on our door. Police would just laugh and hang up. Yeah, they're keeping us surprised of your every move, dumbasses. What was that flippin' move the other day when Mr. Parental Unit Dirty Laundrie came back with a half-gallon of milk and nothing else? That was bullshit. Unless he had to go get some for his ulcer that's acting up from all the lying and covering up he's doing for his dumbass son. How can you just sit there and lie to the FBI and the police? Oh, their lawyer has to be a snake in the grass. But Brian Baldo will be caught eventually, and I hope his parents are brought up on charges for raising such a dumb fuck. Can they charge you for that? They're dumb fuck 1 and dumb fuck 2, so what else should I think their son would be? And their daughter is pretending, oh, I'm just clueless. I noticed she's not come around. She did that one interview. I didn't watch the whole thing. I need to watch that. Stuff happens so fast and all over the place, it's hard to keep up with. But, van life, I want to do van life, and I love to watch van life videos. But I'm not fooled by thinking it's all, I don't look at the Instagram bullshit, because that's all baloney. They spend all day trying to get one perfect shot, and instead of just enjoying what they're supposed to be enjoying, a simpler life. I think van life is more something that you do on your own rather than as a couple. I just don't think it works out as well. The happiest people are the ones who are by themselves. It's for someone who enjoys their own company, like I do. I enjoy my own company. In a van, that's a very small space to share, and you have to check with the other person on every single fucking thing you want to do, from if you want to have a lazy day. No, I want to go hiking. I'm not hungry, but I guess I can drag out the Coleman stove just for you. And another one, I need to poop. Let's drive to Walmart. No, go take a shit out in the woods. That reminds me of a joke. A bear and a rabbit are taking a shit in the woods. The bear said, "Excuse me, Mr. Rabbit, do you have problems with shit sticking to your fur?" And he said, "No, why?" So the bear wiped his ass with the rabbit. Fuckface drove poor Gabby crazy with he loves to go barefoot, and he would go hiking barefoot, and then he wouldn't wash his fucking feet. Can you imagine? You already have a shit ton of dirty laundry, which suits him just fine. That's how they did it at his stupid house. We love our laundry. Oh, not clean. No, just leave it all heaped up in the overflowing onto the dirty floor with wet hair and dust all over it. It'll always be there tomorrow. I bet they never have a laundry routine or even sort their laundry. Everything's all gray and dingy looking. When they even do get around to washing it, it sits in the washer until it mildews. Gets thrown into the dryer where it sits for weeks on end with those hard-pressed permanent wrinkles. It's to the point you can't tell the dirty laundry from the clean, if there is any clean. No wonder Baldo never minded about his feet. I bet they're all calloused and gross-looking, and his toenails are all curled and curled and overgrown and shit. Can you imagine the bed sheets in that van? Again, I know Dog the Bounty Hunter showed up to smack them across the face. I wish my mother was alive. She would go stomping over there. She thought nothing of stomping down the street to slap a neighbor. That was back in the 70s, though, when you could do shit like that. They wouldn't even call the police. They would just have their son beat up your son at the bus stop the next day. Something like that. And Baldo is one of those ones that not only does he track dirt into the van, but he denies it. I didn't do that. Oh my God, you're so obsessive. And then calling her a crazy psycho bitch because it bothers her. No, it's dirty, you fucking asshole. Maybe she's not OCD. I think he drilled that shit into her head. Maybe she just realized on this trip that she hates and is grossed out by dirty laundry. God, could you blame her? I think she was getting to the point of wanting to leave him, but you're stuck out thousands of miles away from home. As I said the other day, she's barely an adult. They still need their parents. I mean, that's why she talked to her mom all the time on the phone. God almighty. Bless their hearts. Oh, her parents and her step-parents. I feel so bad for them. But I was wondering about Dog. Doesn't his hair give him a headache? Like it looks all heavy and hot and sweaty. Ugh. So let's talk about the interview that I posted late last night about the woman that told the story of the restaurant debacle. I had to edit the hell out of that interview. Before that, they were in the booth right next to Baldo and Gabby. And by the way, I can't take credit for Baldo. That was a viewer in comments, and I was like, oh my God, that is so good. I want to use that. And so I did, and if it pisses you off, I'm sorry. Okay, but yeah, I got it from a commenter on one of my videos. But she says she was less than a foot away from them, but then says she couldn't tell what they were talking about. I call bullshit. She just doesn't want to say. Or maybe the FBI said, you can talk about it, but don't tell them what they said or what fuckface said. And she's like, okay, got it, FBI sirs, ma'ams. But was this meltdown before or after the traffic stop? I don't think it was the same day, was it? I'm just curious, because if it was before and had they called the police, why didn't they call the police? But maybe it would have made a difference at the traffic stop. Or if they had called the police and they're like, this is the same couple, maybe then. But I don't know. I feel like the police kind of dropped the ball. But I don't want to start blaming people and stuff. We don't really have that many details yet. Except for the parents. I do fucking want to blame them because they know where the fuck their son is. Don't you think they would be out looking for him if they didn't? They are acting suspicious as hell, and I just read that they called the fucking police on Dog. I don't like that shit. Dog's trying to get a dangerous person off the streets that killed what was to be their future daughter-in-law. They are complete assholes. But, I'm gonna veer off for a second, y'all. And I don't mean to gossip. You know I don't like to gossip. I've just never been a gossiper. However, this woman first told her story on Instagram. Was it Instagram or TikTok? I think it was Instagram, because there was pictures, but guess how many fucking edits I did? Well, I forgot to count, but I swear I'm not exaggerating if I say 40, I would say 38 to 55 edits. I'm not kidding. It was horrible. At one point she was, and this has nothing to do but her but at one point she was sitting there scratching the hell out of her eye, and it started really irritating the hell out of me. She just kept going and going on and on with it. Luckily, she kept saying, so I cut a lot of it out. And she's a very pretty lady, and this has nothing to do with it, but she's a very pretty lady. But you can tell she has some sort of filter on her camera. It almost looked blurry. And if you did, it's not needed, sweetie. So that blurry look was not me. None of it's ever me. And I'm not trying to sound all huffy and shit. It was just distracting as hell. her ums and her scratching. Let's just say it was unsettling because it was diverting my attentiveness from the interview. It was making me pissed off, and I'm not one to get pissed off normally. Y'all know me. I was able to get some of that, of the scratching and ums, and there was a loud as hell phone ping that made me jump the fuck up out of my chair. My heart started pounding. I hate shit like that. I don't do well with sudden loud noises. I think it's my fibro. So I was reading a newspaper article and I clicked on the video of her telling her account of what happened in the restaurant. When I did that, it took me to, I don't know if it was her TikTok or Instagram account. Probably Instagram because there are photos. One of which was an adorable little girl. Seems to be around 4 or 5 years old. It could be her daughter, it could be her niece, it could be a friend of a daughter of a friend. I don't know who the little girl is. But this little girl is disgruntled about having her photo taken. And she's, well, it could be that, or apparently my first thought. And remember, I am not gossiping. But it seems to me that she's pissed because she's being made to pose for a picture. And we all have pictures of our kids like that from when they were little. You dress them up in something you think is really cute. They don't agree, and you want to take pictures. I have one like this of when we went to a wedding ages ago. My daughter, who was a tomboy at the time, was wearing a dress for a change, and she was infuriated about it. Her arms were crossed angrily and tightly across her chest, and she just has that pout on her face that every kid can do. You know, that pout. And the wedding was near Christmas, and I got my daughters both the same dress, but in different colors. One was red and one was green, and damn, I've already veered off into about 4 different directions. Let me get to my point. So, on this lady's account, there's a picture of who I assume to be her daughter. We've already discussed this, could or could not be. Dressed up in a white dress. I think she had a little hat on, too, and there she is, arms folded tightly across her chest, infamous pout on her face. However, this white dress she is wearing, to me, is quite sassy. Too sassy for my liking. Why do they make kids' clothing for girls so sexualized now? It is damn hard to find anything that is not sexy for little girls. For women, too. I mean, I don't want to look like an old woman, but I don't want to look like a teenager either. Sorry. Not only is this dress inappropriate, in my mind, I assume she is the mother that, the picture taker, and I will be done in a moment, I promise, as I think I think I might be gossiping, and I'm talking about a child. Something I don't ordinarily do. I am not gossiping about the child. I'm trying to, okay, I know I'm treading into dangerous territory by talking about a little girl, but, well, I'm not talking about the child. I'm not. I'm talking about the clothing I found to be inappropriate. And I wasn't looking for this, but I found it to be upsetting. I was researching a news story. So this white dress, and I'm not gossiping, has a keyhole cut out around the navel, the belly button. To make matters worse, there's a second picture of just that, of just the belly button and the keyhole part of the dress. And I was outraged. Y'all don't have to agree with me. I won't get pissed. I promise. But why is a dress obviously for a child even being sold that has a keyhole cutout of the navel area? And why are adults encouraging more to be made by not only buying it, but taking photos and posting it to Instagram? Now, don't expect me to be showing this picture because I won't. Ever. Am I the only one that thinks this should not be happening? I've seen this man a couple of times. I don't remember where, but he's a stay-at-home dad, and I believe he has a blog or something like that, and he complains about this all the time. I think he's even trying to do something about it, but he has at least one daughter, and he said even from infancy, he has struggled to find appropriate clothing for her. That he sometimes has to go to the boy department, and he doesn't want to because he wants her to look feminine and have the pink and the, well, now you can find pink in the, okay, I'm not even going to start that shit, but I can't believe the t-shirts with the sayings on them even. My mouth actually falls open when I'm in Walmart or another store looking for cute things for my granddaughters to give them, say at Christmas or other times. And I'm not trying to badmouth this woman. I'm really, really not. Maybe and I'm sure she saw it nothing other than, isn't this cute? Isn't this adorable? And I'm not I know I sound like I'm judging. I try not to. I do. And I'm sure that's what it is, that it's all in fun, it's all in innocence. But there's some crazy people out there, nasty men. I have caught men eyeballing my daughters when they were as young as 11 or 12. I made sure they were always dressed appropriately. Modest doesn't have to be Victorian. And still, you know how girls like to grow their hair long and they've just brushed it before going out to the store because we always made the kids clean up a bit before going out into public. Go brush your hair, brush your teeth, wash your hands and face. Put on a clean shirt if they were dirty. I always had people stopping me to say, oh, what a nice family. And I know I'm getting off track again. But just brushed hair is shiny hair. And we all know that lots of men love long hair. And you can't stop the boobs and butts from taking their womanly shape as they approach puberty. There's just some sickos out there, and we don't need to be encouraging them. And I'm so sorry, Gabby, that I've gotten away from your story. But you know I love you, and I feel very protective of you. And I thought Gabby, for the most part, dressed modestly. She always had, like, the higher neck tops on, and yeah, some of the stuff, and she'd go braless, but she's young, you know? You don't need a bra when you're that young and they're still perky. You've not had kids and stuff, but I wish I had rolled up onto that traffic stop. I would have gotten out and told the police that I am the mother of that crying girl. I'll be taking her with me. And then I would have slapped Baldo and got in a car and took off. But anyway, yes, eventually I will get around to playing the videos that I have selected for you today. The woman that tells about the restaurant debacle story has the worst case of the that I have ever come across. It rivals Chris Watts and his fond use of the word like. I'm not kidding. It was worse. Now, I'm not even going to post the link to her video because I've talked about her and I don't mean to if you're listening. I know I sound like a bitch, but I'm not. But now I'm positive it was because she's not used to doing media interviews. She was a bit nervous. I would have passed the fuck out. And I know I come across as an outrageous bitch. But I'm actually very understanding and compassionate. And one last thing on this subject. Is there a link that you guys can give me of any? I'm going to look myself, but of the two women that were shot in Moab, they were the newlyweds, and I know one of them worked at a restaurant. Was it this restaurant? If it is, I'm flipping the fuck out. Do you think asshole did this? I mean, Baldo's dirty laundry, like say after this incident was so enraged that women because remember the lady said he seemed embarrassed that he was so out of control or something to that effect. And just wondering, did he stalk them and shoot them? I mean, and we don't know the cause yet of Gabby's death. If it's a gunshot wound, I'm really flipping out. I will be checking into this more, gonna try and get a story out on it, but please share with me in the comments any information you might think is helpful. They were shot, and if Gabby was shot, then I would say yes, it was Baldo. There's probably a connection. And I do try to get to the comments. I know I say this, but I really mean it. But they come at me so fast, and if I'm researching and recording videos, I find it hard to keep up. And I will get caught up one day, I promise. I know I've been saying that forever, but I've never been able to keep up with dirty laundry. Go figure. I'm going to stop talking about this lady. I'll just say that before I edited the interview, and while it took so long, that's why I went ahead and posted it last night, it was like pulling out some teeth with very deep roots. Does that make sense to y'all? It doesn't have to. It's a Kimberleyism. And I still don't get the part where she said they were so close, but she doesn't understand. However, I'm sure there's a reason she's saying that. Maybe her husband said, until he's caught and in jail, don't say any more. It wasn't just her. The interviewer was also full of ums and you knows and dragging out her questions. So I edited the hell out of her too. Do others not realize that this comes off as unprofessional? If that's your approach, as being professional. I've witnessed newscasters doing this as well lately. I'm not okay with this, people. And to hear the woman tell the story, I am baffled as to why the police were not called. Then when they were pulled over, they may have been more inclined to arrest him. I know what it was, though. He charmed those freaking police officers with his nice guy attitude. These crazies can do that. They can charm the pants off of anybody. Let me know if you've been enjoying this format I've been doing, or if you would like to see something different, or just don't say do a live. I'm not doing a live. Talk about nervous. No. And I don't really like watching most lives unless they're very organized and follow a format. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to be stuffy. That's just my preference. I find lives to be too long and tedious. And I don't like how the chats turn into Gossip Town instead of watching the show and just chatting about that or asking questions. And as I'm trying to get this damn video out to you, it's been a terribly busy weekend. Well, actually, month here at the Mr. and Mrs. Kimberley household. People drop in on us and then they start living here. It happens every time. We've never been able to experience empty nest syndrome. More on that later, but as this is going to press, I see that the Utah police yesterday was told that a male struck a female when they were dispatched to that call. What the fuck was their problem? I hope they feel like shit now. I'll bitch more on that later. I think I'm going to post the unedited version of that lady's interview. I'm going to post the edited version again for those who haven't seen it, but the unedited, I'll slap it at the very end of the video for those that don't care to watch that, just so you can see, because it took away so much from the interview. It really did. After I edited it, not to toot my own horn, but it just flowed, and you're sitting there going, oh my God, at her telling the story. It was spellbounding. Is that a word, spell? Okay. I hope you have a pleasant and easy week. Always know that I will be here for you. I mean, I might doze off or something, but I'm always here. Enjoy the videos, and I'm so happy to have you here with me to make sure that Brian Dirty Laundrie pays his dues for what he did to our girl Gabby. Much love and peace, and thank you for listening.
Dead or alive at this point, do you think?
I don't know. For a while, I thought he might be dead. But when I think back to the fact that the parents, I think, were very involved in making sure he was able to escape, covering up his whereabouts until the 17th. So they had from September 1st to the 17th. There's all this unusual activity, buying a camper. He goes camping with his parents. I don't know any 23-year-old who does. I think that they were either casing out a place where he could go, or they were getting rid of evidence. I think he's arrogant enough to think that he can survive this. But on the other hand, he may say, I don't want to go to jail, so I'd rather die. Who knows?
And then, so is the search just in that Carlton Reserve, or is it much broader?
The search is much broader. And, everybody thinks they're looking in the Carlton Reserve for Brian. I think they may be looking for evidence in the Carlton Reserve, because remember, the parents helped him clean out the camper, her van that he brought back. We don't know what was in the van. We don't know what was in the Mustang. The parents have pretty much kept all of that away from the police by their silence, by their lawyering up. There's all kinds of evidence that's gone. So there may be evidence that they're looking for in addition to Laundrie in that swamp area.
One thing I don't know if our viewers know about you, and I've only learned this week, that in 1978, you set up the first domestic violence unit as a prosecutor. And one of the reasons you wanted to, in the country. And you did that because you knew that this is a problem that happens. What do you think about what Mark Fuhrman said about what happened in Utah.
You know, the problem is when you have a police officer saying that domestic violence charges are not meant for people going through the state and traveling through the state. They're only meant for people who live in the state. That is outrageous. That's what people were thinking 40 years ago. I started, you're right, the first domestic violence unit in the country. It was a pilot project. That mentality is what gets young people like this in real trouble. The law in Utah makes it very clear that there is a mandatory arrest in a case where the police believe there will be continuing violence. There was a call to 911 by an outsider who said he's slapping her. The car was swerving, hitting the curb. They were both agitated. She was hitting him, and it was clear that he didn't want her in the van. He was trying to prevent her from getting into her own van. You don't just turn around and say, well, that's the end of it. You know, they're from out of state. Well, maybe he is going to leave her here, which is exactly what it appeared to be. Domestic violence cases are cases where you have to assess the danger to the woman or to the man in 10% of the cases. I very much disagree with Mark. He was wrong.
Because he said that if you're going through the state, that the laws aren't for there.
Domestic violence laws don't apply to you. But there is mandatory arrest in most states in this country. The police have an obligation to assess who is the primary aggressor and who is the one that they're going to put under arrest. In some states, they'll put them both under arrest. And he says, well, they'll both be bailed. Who knows what was going to happen in this case?
Do you have any comment, Mr. Laundrie?
Thursday, Daily Mail cameras capturing Laundrie's parents traveling to Orlando to meet with their attorney.
I spoke with Brian's family attorney yesterday, and he told me that the parents are not speaking to police. They had some interaction with police yesterday, but that was just to recover that Mustang that the FBI seized earlier this week on the search warrant of the house. But other than that, the parents are not speaking to police.
What are your thoughts about what's playing out with the Laundrie family?
Well, I think that the parents started by doing whatever they could to protect Brian Laundrie. But then when Gabby is found dead, not just dead, killed, homicide, I think at this point, it's no longer just protecting your son. They are part of it now. And we're hearing from the Teton County Medical Examiner that the manner of death is homicide. There's a big difference between manner and cause. There's five manners. You've got accident, natural, suicide. Cause of death is what I'm looking at. Was she struck? Was there blunt trauma? Was she strangled? It hasn't been released yet. But Harris, you know, they know the cause of death because they immediately said, this is a homicide. They took one look and went, she was killed. This is not a suicide, not natural causes, not accident. She was killed. So they know right now what the cause of death is.
Well, and I would have to think that this is a step-by-step process, and you would know this better than anybody, former prosecutor. You're building a case at this point. So it's a step-by-step process. You go to the house. You start to put things in order now, not just because you anticipate you know the answer, but because you anticipate you're going to have to prove it.
Yes, prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And that is where social media users have been so helpful. They spot Gabby's van there. And listen to this, Harris. I got clarification today. There was the van where the van was parked, according to Red, White, Empathy and on YouTube. Then there is brush, grass. And I have hiked and RV'd out in that very same area. You've got the van, you've got brush, you've got a creek. And then on the other side of the creek, you've got Gabby dead by a log. So it's point A to point B. So I'm sure they're trying to determine, was she dragged over there? Where was she killed? And the area is now open. Yeah.
Dr. Bodden joined us in Focus yesterday, and he was pointing to the fact that, you know, they really have to discover how the body got where it was. And now you've laid out why that is such an important detail, too. Because it's just not right off the beaten path. It's a distance from there and a creek. I want to get to this. Despite police allowing Brian Laundrie to go after that domestic abuse incident, the one that was caught on police cam, one of the park rangers who responded to that call last month, Melissa Hulse, thought it was serious enough to pull Gabby aside and talk to her about her, quote, toxic relationship. She said, I was imploring with her to reevaluate the relationship, asking her if she was happy in the relationship with him, and basically saying this was an opportunity for her to find another path. I can still hear her voice. She wasn't just a face on the milk carton. She was real to me. Nancy.
You know, Harris, the single most dangerous time for an abused woman is when she decides to finally leave. She had a cop talking to her. She had this woman talking to her. She's out there alone in the wild with Brian Laundrie. Did she decide, I've had it? I've really seen who he is on this trip. I want out. Is that what led to it? You can't escape the forensics, Harris, that here's the van and here's Gabby's dead body. They got to find Brian Laundrie.
Real quickly before I let you go, and I wanted to ask you particularly this because you and I, have covered stories like Natalie Holloway together. When you hear that the FBI, the cops, whomever was tasked with this, and I'm assuming it was the FBI at the time, had an opportunity to watch the movements of Brian Laundrie and the family without breaking any laws. I mean, I can watch them from across the street. And then yet he was able to go someplace so far away from the house. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's called plain view. If I can stand on the sidewalk and watch his house, so can the cops. It's their right, too. Well, I hate to pile on the cops. Where in the hay were they when
it's the
Laundrie
FBI.
just walks out of the house? Yes, it's the FBI. But think about it. He had to be secreted out. I mean, think about it. How did he get out with that Ford Mustang and nobody see? He had to have help getting out secretly. He didn't just prance out across the front yard.
Interesting. And I like the way you put that, too, secretly, because the FBI undoubtedly knows more than they're saying. They always do. That's them doing their job. I think the best in that, and we'll find out more.
The country is suspicious of, obviously, of Brian and his family. Why didn't the family notify authorities immediately when he left the house? There's nothing that they can do or say that's going to be acceptable by the public. They obviously have counsel. Their counsel is going to tell them no statements at this time because they are being suspected. Even if they didn't do anything, their truth may not necessarily jive with the facts that have been uncovered by law enforcement already, and therefore prudent counsel is going to say at this point, no statements. Plus, get it outside of the legal realm. Parents, turning on their son if he is in fact the one who did this, and everyone's looking at it like that. Is it unreasonable to think they're going to protect their kid? So do they want to get hit with obstruction and tampering and lying to the feds and so forth? Probably not. Best to keep their mouth shut.
Question will be, is he really missing? I mean, yes, they reported him missing, but timely in terms of time-wise, how convenient that they reported him missing after more information was coming out about Gabby's whereabouts. So it's very convenient on that end. In the end, I don't know if it was to take the scent off their son that they're in this area or to give him some more time so he can get somewhere else. Because is he really in the wilderness? We don't know. They're going there to search because it's based on what the parents said. But at this point, there has been no signs of him. How is he eating? Does he have money on him? Obviously, he's not using debit or credit cards because they'll be able to track that. He doesn't have his phone, so they can't track his whereabouts. So he doesn't have the family car, so you can't look for that car in terms of where it's been driving. So at this point, it's like, where are you? Are you dead? Are you alive? Are you in another country by now?
I think it was them protecting their son, but I think they just took it too far. If their son was innocent, I don't feel that they should have lawyered up as soon as he came back into the state. And I felt that if he had nothing to do with it, then they should have released a statement somehow stating his innocence.
They also tell Fox News that for the few days Brian was home without Gabby, it was business as usual. They saw him mowing the lawn and going for a bike ride with his mom.
A couple who lived across the street from Brian Laundrie and his family say they saw his parents leave their home in a truck with an attached camper about a week after Brian Laundrie returned home alone from that cross-country trip on September 1st.
We know the FBI is aware of it. When we heard that from neighbors, we reached out to Northport PD and we asked them about it. All they would tell us is that couple has given that tip to the FBI, but they would not go any further. We don't know how they followed that tip, if it led them anywhere, or if they're continuing to pursue it today.
You can put a cop on the stand and you can ask the officer that famous question that prosecutors always do. Officer, what did you do next? And that officer can say, oh, well, I went to talk to Brian Larson, but his lawyer wouldn't allow me to speak with him. And they can also say, officer, what did you do next? Say, well, they filed a missing persons report, so I went to talk to their parents, but the parents' lawyer wouldn't let me speak with them. So I did not get a statement from them. And right there, you've told the jury a lot with asking those two questions. Officer, what did you do next?
I feel like they should have did a little more. That's my thought.
I don't understand why he was allowed to disappear. That's what I don't understand.
Gabby Petito's dad made some comments on Twitter today, on social media, and he really said right now they're focusing on funeral arrangements this weekend in New York. But in the beginning of all of this, when Brian's parents reported him missing, that is when the family friend of the Petito family released a statement saying that they don't believe Brian is missing, they believe Brian is hiding.
Police say Brian's parents told them he came out to the area to hike last Tuesday. Why do authorities believe he may still be there?
Law enforcement really pointed out today that this is not a waste of time. They have intelligence that Brian Laundrie may be in this park, and that is why they're searching. They also pointed out there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that we're not seeing, including maybe getting some search warrants for some data or social media. But again, they are going to search this park. They feel that they have a due diligence and obligation to really comb through the area here.
It's multiple tips yesterday. Our hotline blew up because it's the people who will find this guy. People ask me all the time, you found 1,422 of the world's most wanted fugitives that no cops could catch. You found 17 of the FBI's 10 most wanted, 61 missing children, including Elizabeth Smart. How do you do it? It's very simple. I tell people, you can text me, you can call me. I don't trace, I don't tap the phones. I know people don't want to call cops because they think they'll get dragged into it. I don't care if you're legal, illegal, where you are, just text me or call me. And that's how I've caught all these people, because the public is my supporters. And that blogger that found his van is the reason why they were able to find her body. Right. And the people who picked him up hitchhiking put him there in that area, hitchhiking back to his van so he could get away. So that's going to happen tonight. And I got to say one thing, Martha. I said it last week. The guy is not in the house. He was there when he came back. He scrubbed that van. His parents helped him, the dirty Laundries. That's what I'm calling the mom and dad. I know they got rid of the evidence. They bought a camper top. On your show, I heard that couple say there was a new camper top there that they went on a weekend trip with their grown son, kind of unusual, in a little camper top on a pickup truck, and they came back 3 days later. So when I heard that this lawyer, this Stephen Bertolino, this Johnny Cochran, O.J. Simpson wannabe get his 15 minutes of fame lawyer, called up last Friday and said, oh, we want to do the right thing now. We want to let you know that on Tuesday, Brian left with a backpack and he went to a swamp. Then on Wednesday, we went and left him a note. Don't hurt yourself, Brian. We're worried about you. And then Thursday, in the middle of a 60,000-acre swamp, after they left the note in the car, and how the hell did they find the car in the swamp? They brought the car home. And then on Friday, finally on Friday, Stephen Bertolino, the big talking mouthpiece for the dirty Laundries, called up and said, oh, Brian's missing. He's been gone since Tuesday. He left way before that. He was in that camper when the father and mother went out. I would guarantee it. And I've been doing this 33 years. He was in that camper when they went on a little trip before she was reported missing. And they bought him 5 extra days with that ruse. That kid has been throwing red herrings everywhere. And I got to go ahead, Martha. I know you got a question.
I'm fascinated by everything that you're saying. I just have about a half a minute here.
Okay, let me get
go ahead. Go ahead.
Let me get to this. They're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars looking in that swamp with all kinds of law enforcement. They should have been tipped off by the stop out there, the 911 call. Why didn't that 911 operator let those 2 cops know that the wonderful caller, again the public, said, I saw him slapping her around, I saw her punch him in the face? How did those cops know it? They wrote up their report and said he was the victim. They could have saved her life. Here's my big question. I would have put a black and white police car. This lawyer keeps talking about Fifth Amendment. Nobody wanted to talk to Brian and his parents. No one wants to violate the Fifth Amendment. I do it old school. Black and white in front of the house on public area street, black and white in the back of the house. If the father ever leaves, tail him in an unmarked car. How the hell did the FBI and the Northport police let this kid slip out of the house?
We got to jump out there. No, I couldn't agree with you more.
These were the conditions there yesterday: heat, humidity, and the threat of snakes and alligators as crews continued searching the enormous 25,000-acre park. Consider this, that is bigger than the entire city of Clearwater. And it has miles and miles of trails through forests and prairies, and a huge portion of the park is actually wetlands. And that is the reason the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office Underwater Recovery Force showed up yesterday to help the search. Northport Police later clarified that the highly trained divers weren't there because something specific was found. They were there to just help in the overall search effort.
He was hitchhiking, but yet he drove the van back to Florida. So people are wondering, why did he have to hitchhike? And then this debit card, do we know who this debit card belongs to?
Well, it's very interesting. The federal indictment, is one count, and I've got it right here, does not reveal to whom the credit card, it's a debit card, belonged, but it was used over $1,000. And there's an important reason they put that. That makes it a felony. There's a threshold amount that has to be cited. So this is what we know. We know that Laundrie's defense attorney is parsing words, saying, well, this is about use of a debit card, not about her death. What? She's lying dead out at a campground in Wyoming, and he's making his way home using her debit card. If it were his own debit card, it wouldn't be a crime. Of course it's hers, accessing two different accounts. Now, this is also tactical by the feds. They are going to arrest him on this while they build their case on the homicide. I've seen a lot of cases where somebody's picked up on a minor charge to get them in custody. I've also spoken to divers who have dived in very difficult circumstances like Carlton Reserve. The water is as black as coffee, and it is contaminated because of all the animals living in it. They have to wear dry suits, which means it's really hot, and they're down there looking for either Laundrie or evidence.
The Laundrie family's attorney saying in a statement, "It is my understanding that the arrest warrant for Brian Laundrie is related to activities occurring after the death of Gabby Petito and not related to her actual demise."
Now that there's an arrest warrant, the police can arrest him, take him into custody, take his fingerprints. So this is actually a game changer.
That charge is a bailable charge, so that's not going to keep him in custody. And so if they did arrest him on that charge, he can bail right out and then still go on the run. And that's a very, very weak charge, because what is the evidence that he wasn't authorized? That's his girlfriend's card. Who says that his girlfriend says, I couldn't use the card? His girlfriend's not going to be able to testify, hey, I didn't want him using my card. So that case right there will never stand up. You know, I know that they want to get him into custody, but like I said, it's a bailable offense, and he can bail immediately out on a charge like that.
Let's say, you know, and they're working hard, that they actually find him. They throw the cuffs on him. This is a federal charge in the District of Wyoming. Right now, if they find him, they're looking in Florida. How does that go down? What takes place?
So they would bring him back. The U.S. Marshal Service would likely bring him back to the jurisdiction within where he's been indicted, Wyoming, and he will immediately be detained under federal statute. Defense counsel will ask for a detention hearing. There will be evidence presented at that time. But we know that just as they are putting all the resources in the world towards finding him, they also have similar numbers of lawyers and investigators also building the case. When he is in detention, he's going to be there for a number of days, 10 days, let's say, and it could be extended. During that time, likely they will have that case ready to go, serve him. Then at that point, they're going to say, okay, now you've been indicted with the larger charge. You're not going anywhere. So we'll buy them time to do that. And also by having them under indictment now, that allows them to afford the extended resources that you see here, because there is an indictment. He is an official fugitive. So there's a great reason for everything that they're doing here. It just ups their ability to find him, hold him, long enough to charge him again with the charge of murder.
A shredded wetsuit tells the tale of a close encounter with an alligator.
That's where the teeth went into my skull.
Jeffrey Heim is taking us to the spot where it happened.
I got bit by an alligator right here.
The 25-year-old was scuba diving in the Carlton Reserve, the same alligator-infested swampland that is now the focus of national attention in the search for Gabby Petito's wanted fiancé, Brian Laundrie.
This river has a lot higher volume of gators than any of the other rivers around here.
Hyam was hunting for giant prehistoric megalodon shark teeth like this. He sells them through his company, sharkco.com. Out of nowhere, a 7-foot gator attacked. This is the actual moment of the attack.
They just pulled me down, pulled my mask off, and I come up, and then I'm just looking at her, and I realize, oh my gosh, it's a gator.
Hyam was rushed to the hospital and escaped with a skull fracture and 34 gruesome staples in his head.
It got me right here, and right here too. I'm lucky I still have my hand.
Jeffrey says he has a lot of respect for the authorities searching for Gabby Petito's fiancé in the gator-infested terrain. He says he is too traumatized to go back.
And I have a lot of anxiety. I don't plan to go back in that river. I'm very lucky to be alive.
Yeah, it was our first full day of vacation in Jackson Hole. We were at Mary Piglets, which is a Mexican restaurant in Jackson Hole, and it was Friday, August 27th. We got to the restaurant around 1 o'clock, and it was the altercation took place within the first hour of us being there, so it had to have been before 2 o'clock.
Notice about their interaction with each other?
It wasn't so much their interaction with each other. I didn't really take notice to them at all until they from their table, and they were, like I mentioned in my video, abruptly leaving the restaurant. It looked as though they were like almost getting kicked out, and it was never so much, it wasn't necessarily between them. It was more so Gabby abruptly leaving the restaurant crying, and Brian was just evidently really upset. Pissed off, I would say Gabby was upset. He was angry, and he was just being very temperamental towards the restaurant staff.
It's fine if you aren't sure. Do you know what the source of his anger was, or why she was upset?
No, and I don't want to say because I don't want to fabricate anything. I've mentioned that in the moment, when it was happening, we didn't know who these people were, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But in that moment, I was thinking to myself, it seemed as though, I don't know, you think worst case scenario, like, what was something wrong with their food? Were they displeased with the service? It still doesn't, that still doesn't seem like that much anger is worth something like that. So it made me think that it seemed as if he was embarrassed and he was angry about being embarrassed. I got the feeling that they were asked to leave, or that they were being kicked out the restaurant, because it was, like I said, very abrupt. They got up very abruptly and just walked out the restaurant, and she was really upset. She was crying, and he immediately went to the hostess stand and he was just going in on the hostess and the waitress, and then eventually the manager. He exited and entered the restaurant on 4 different occasions within 5 minutes. He would walk out, walk back in, walk out, walk back in. At one moment, we thought they had walked out for good, or he had walked out for good, and he actually left for 10 minutes and then came back just to start the fight all over again.
It's really interesting. And this is just a confirmation question. You said that you and sitting next to them.
Yeah, we were sitting directly next to them. There's 2 tables right by the front door, which is also the exit and also where the hostess stand is. And yeah, we were within not even a foot of each other.
Wow. And you kind of said in detail how he was acting toward the staff. Is there anything that you specifically overheard him say?
No, he was just being really aggressive. I couldn't hear any verbiage or actual words, but it just his body language, and you could obviously I could hear him, but I couldn't make out his words. It was almost like he was screaming. He was really angry. That's the best I can describe it. He was just very visibly angry. It was like a dog with a bone. He wouldn't drop it. Whatever it was, he was pissed off, and he would not let it go. So much so that he would be asked to leave. I guess the restaurant staff was kind of not telling him what he wanted to hear, or maybe they were asking him to continuously leave, and he would leave and he would just re-enter within like a minute, and he just kept coming back and he wouldn't drop it. Whatever it was, he was just getting angrier.
Got it. And these might be, you know, granular details, but if you remember at all, how did the two of them look? Did they look normal for all intents and purposes, or was anything off?
Like I said, I didn't really take notice to them, you know, in the midst of them eating, or I just took notice of them when they were leaving. And in that moment, Gabby reminded me a lot of how she seemed in that body cam video of the cop. She just seemed distraught. She seemed really upset. She was emotional. She was crying. She seemed kind of embarrassed. At one point, she walked back into the restaurant on one of his attempts to walk back in. I think she followed him and was trying to, get him to leave and like drop the situation. I think she was being like apologetic towards the restaurant staff for his behavior. Like she just kind of wanted to diffuse the situation. She was like, "I'm sorry, come on, let's just go." But she was visibly upset. She was crying, and that was really it. And he was just, you could feel his temper. He was angry. He was pissed off.
And in the midst of everything you're describing, at any point did they stay and have a meal? Did you see that they ate, or you didn't know?
I'm not positive. All I remember is that they were sitting at the table directly next to us. We were eating. We were in the middle of our meal. We weren't paying attention to anybody else around us. We only took notice of them when they got up and were leaving. I'm almost positive that they were eating, because I remember questioning, did they even pay? Waitress was also their waitress. We shared a waitress, and she was visibly upset. So I know that she was a part of it. She has to have more information than I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry if any of these questions are redundant. I just want to make sure I cover all my bases here. At no point did you speak directly to them?
No.
And you're saying that it seemed that they were kicked out of the restaurant. When they finally left, did you see how they left?
No, I just saw them walk out the front door.
Gotcha. Any parts to this that, you know, I haven't asked you, anything that you remember that came to you? I know you said that your partner kind of, you know, woke you up and was like, "I remember like why Brian's face is so familiar." The other small details that maybe, you know, have come to you over the past couple of days?
No, it just happened so fast. It was like in the span of like 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, it's something you definitely don't see every day. It was kind of startling. I remember feeling bad for her. And I remember looking across the table at Matt, getting his attention to kind of, you know, tell him what was going on. And I just remember telling Matt, like vividly, I remember telling him, "This guy is freaking me out." His demeanor, the way he was acting, how persistent he was, he freaked me out.
And this is my last question. What made you post the story once you guys put the pieces together on the fact that you had seen the two of them?
Just, I was kind of like, and that was very in the heat of the moment when I posted that Instagram story. It was within like seconds that we pieced it together. So I didn't really think about it before I posted it. It was mainly just for my friends. I just kind of, you know, thought it was just a crazy story. And I did have hopes that maybe it would get out there and it could help, you know, people piece together the story. I certainly wasn't expecting it to blow up to the degree that it did. But yeah, there really wasn't much thought before posting it. It was just like, oh my God, this happened. We were there. We saw this. We witnessed this. Like, I have to get the word out there. And that's kind of how it happened.
The authorities are still investigating the case. They're still building a case to determine if he's actually the one responsible for this homicide. That investigation is ongoing. But since they suspect that, they want to get him into custody. They want to make sure that when that case is built, he's sitting in a cell. So they clearly were able to establish enough probable cause to get that past a grand jury. It's obviously a low charge. That's not the end of the road. That's not their goal. But it says to me that he used probably her debit card. It was a Capital, I think, debit card with that code. He wasn't authorized to do it. So that there gave the cause for a grand jury to indict him. They now have sought to detain him once he is arrested, which means hold him throughout the pendency of the case. Because they said if we don't detain him, he is likely not to appear in court and he poses a safety risk to the public. But in the end, what does it mean? They want to put the pressure on him once he's in a cell to make admissions, to give them the time to fully investigate this, and to ultimately get to the murder charge, which is exactly what they're gunning for here.
I think if you hadn't heard of TikTok before you learned of this case, you certainly know what it is now. That has been a huge help to investigators receiving those tips. And on that note, I want to mention we spoke with former FBI agent Rich Kolko last night, and he told us, you know, some of those tips from social media, they're going to come in and they're going to be nothing. But the FBI continues to want you to send those in so they can sort through what's credible. Back to your question about what the authorities took from that home. Again, they will not tell us. We know they took bags and boxes of evidence, so much over a period of time. On Monday, they continued to collect evidence. We do know, though, that through a search warrant, investigators were able to get into a hard drive found inside Gabby and Brian's van, and in that hard drive, they were able to go and are able to go through her text messages as they continue that investigation. Another thing folks have been talking about, we learned in that search warrant, one of those text messages was a text to Gabby's mom. The last text she received, she called her grandfather Stan, and Gabby's mom said that was so abnormal, it concerned her because she always called her grandfather Grandpa, not Stan. So those text messages we know they're looking at, but other than that, bags and bags of evidence, we're going to have to wait to find out what was in those. Really, we're only left to assume that they're taking that word from Brian Laundrie's parents at face value, because other than that, they will not tell us. Northport PD is done giving interviews. The FBI similarly is tight-lipped. But as you said, his parents told investigators late last week that Laundrie came here on Tuesday to the Carlton Preserve for a hike, and since then, law enforcement has responded with a serious show of force. They have infrared cameras, canines, dive teams. You mentioned this reserve is vast. It is larger than Manhattan, 25,000 acres. So again, we're really only left to assume that they are taking his parents' word at face value because of the show of force they've come here with.
It shows me is that by then they already believed that Gabby was already dead, because those are the dates that they're stating, and also that he's using her debit card instead of Gabby going ahead and using her own debit card. There's no citing of her actually using it. So they're narrowing the time frame of when Gabby actually died and how much time did Brian have to get away from where the body was and to make it to Florida. Also goes to show you, guess what? Brian has about $1,000 on his person that he can use to try to survive for at least a couple of days, if not weeks.
Noreen Gibbons is a friend of the Petito family in from Oregon. Her home was supposed to be the last stop on Gabby and Brian's trip.
I don't know if I want him to be dead or if I want him to be alive to face the consequences, you know. I loved him, and I love Gabby.
I think the fact that domestic violence seems to be part of what was going on.
But the bottom line is that this family is broken forever, you know? And it's just so senseless.
When you look at Gabby's posts from her cross-country trip with Brian, I mean, you would not be able to tell that there was anything wrong. You know, and it sort of speaks to the larger issue of how we all sort of live our lives on social media. We project on social media an appearance that we want people to believe is our life, but the reality is that oftentimes it's not that at all. It's sort of, it has very little to do with the internal lives that we're leading. And the reason I bring that up is because you mentioned the search warrant records, and police noted in those search warrant records that Gabby's mental health appeared to have been deteriorating. What did they learn about that? How did they learn about that? Because if you look at her videos on social media, you can't tell that that's happening.
Vlad, you would never know, and I'm glad you asked, because from speaking with a number of neighbors who knew Gabby from afar, they weren't close friends, but they saw the videos, they saw Gabby and Brian working on their van. They were shocked to learn that there were perhaps mental health struggles, and I think that really goes back to that video we saw come out of Moab when a bystander called the Moab police when Gabby and Brian were traveling. They had an altercation, and the police eventually ended up saying, you know, we're not going to arrest anyone because for domestic violence because we think this is a mental health crisis. In that video, you see Gabby so distraught. She's talking about her OCD. She's crying on end. So many people have seen that video. And again, neighbors I spoke with, they were shocked because they too followed along with their social media. Someone said, you know, it was like a fairy tale. We saw them working on the van. You just really never know what's inside someone's life. And I think you're right. I think that will be one of the footprints of these cases. Their involvement on the internet, as you said, onlookers, TikTok, Instagram, that component. So it's multifaceted. It's very interesting. And I think folks will look at that aspect, to your point, for quite a while.
The larger story here, the larger context of what happened to Gabby, which has happened to thousands and thousands of women. And we don't know that Brian Laundrie is at all involved in that. He's just only a person of interest. But I want to talk about specifically the video that we were just showing there, where police approached Gabby and had a conversation with her and Brian after they had been in some kind of altercation. And you know, there is a narrative here that women are often killed by the men that they love, and you know that has happened thousands and thousands of times in this country and around the world. Obviously, we don't know what caused Gabby's death, and we don't have a motive or anything yet. But I'm just sort of talking to that moment where the police pulled them over and had a conversation with them. Oftentimes you hear, rather than sending an individual to jail who put their hands on you or who assaulted you, you say it's not a big deal.
Vlad, I think it's a really important point, and as we were talking about, so many different aspects of this case have fascinated people, it's gripped people, and I think, to your point, that is one of those aspects that people are really relating to. I spoke with one of their neighbors yesterday afternoon, and she said, you know, I can't help but feel this is Romeo and Juliet. It's not quite what you're saying, but it's along that same line of the romantic relationship, and she acknowledged, you know, I don't know what happened, but it's just very chilling for so many women across the country to see two people in love so happy, and then this is such a tragic ending, and the story obviously is not over. That's why we're outside here at the Carlton Reserve on day 5 of this search. So I think you're going to see this case, even if and when law enforcement find Mr. Laundrie, that those conversations are going to continue to happen, because they're not just happening here in Sarasota County, they are happening all across the country and all across the internet.
Got the grass this morning. So
last time I seen them was before they went on their trip.
Yeah.
They were in the driveway. They worked on that van.
Okay. All right. Thanks, brother. Hold on, guys.
Why are you looking for them?
We can't talk right now. I'm sorry.
Can you tell us why you're here, sir?
Well, really, come on. You know. great. Aloha, guys. Thank you.
Do you have any tips?
I'm trying to get some.
And the family in the neighborhood out in the front yard. I thought it was just, again, a normal, they were going for a walk kind of, thing. So never thought anything about it.
Yeah, it was our first full day of vacation in Jackson Hole. We were at Mary Piglets, which is a Mexican restaurant in Jackson Hole, and it was Friday, August 27th. We got to the restaurant around 1 o'clock, and it was the altercation took place within the first hour of us being there, so it had to have been before 2 o'clock.
And in as much detail as you feel comfortable sharing, what did you notice about their interaction with each other?
It wasn't so much their interaction with each other. I didn't really take notice to them at all until they got up from their table, and they were, like I mentioned in my video, abruptly leaving the restaurant. It looked as though they were like almost getting kicked out, and it was never so much, it wasn't necessarily between them. It was more so Gabby abruptly leaving the restaurant crying, and Brian was just evidently really upset, pissed off. I would say Gabby was upset. He was angry, and he was just being very temperamental towards the restaurant staff.
And it's fine if you aren't sure. Do you know what the source of his anger was, or why she was upset?
No, and I don't want to say, because I don't want to fabricate anything. I've mentioned that it just, in the moment, when it was happening, we didn't know who these people were, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But in that moment, I was thinking to myself, it seemed as though, I don't know, you think worst case scenario, like, what, was something wrong with their food? Were they displeased with the service? It still doesn't, that still doesn't seem like that much anger is worth something like that. So it made me think that it seemed as if he was embarrassed, and he was angry about being embarrassed. I got the feeling that they were asked to leave, or that they were being kicked out the restaurant, because it was, like I said, very abrupt. They got up very abruptly and just walked out the restaurant, and she was really upset. She was crying, and he immediately went to the hostess stand and was just, he was just going in on the hostess and the waitress, and then eventually the manager. He exited and entered the restaurant on 4 different occasions within 5 minutes. He would walk out, walk back in, walk out, walk back in. At one moment, we thought they had walked out for good, or he had walked out for good, and he actually left for 10 minutes and then came back just to start the fight all over again.
It's really interesting. And this is just a confirmation question. You said that you and I'm not sure your partner were sitting next to them.
Yeah, we were sitting directly next to them. There's 2 tables right by the front door, which is also the exit and also where the hostess stand is. And yeah, we were within not even a foot of each other.
Wow. And you kind of said in detail how he was acting toward the staff. Is there anything that you specifically overheard him say?
No, he was just being really aggressive. I couldn't hear any verbiage or actual words, but it just his body language, and you could obviously I could hear him, but I couldn't make out his words. He was, I would say, it was almost like he was screaming. He was really angry. That's the best I can describe it. He was just very visibly angry. It was like a dog with a bone. He wouldn't drop it. Whatever it was, he was pissed off, and he would not let it go. So much so that he would be asked to leave. I guess the restaurant staff was kind of not telling him what he wanted to hear, or maybe they were asking him to continuously leave, and he would leave, and he would just re-enter within a minute, and he just kept coming back, and he wouldn't drop it. Whatever it was, he was just getting angrier.
Got it. And these might be, granular details, but if you remember at all, how did the 2 of them look? Did they look normal for all intents and purposes, or was anything off?
Like I said, I didn't really take notice to them, in the midst of them eating, or I just took notice of them when they were leaving. And in that moment, Gabby reminded me a lot of how she seemed in that body cam video of the cop, she just seemed distraught. She seemed really upset. She was emotional. She was crying. She seemed kind of embarrassed. At one point, she walked back into the restaurant on one of his attempts to walk back in. I think she followed him and was trying to, I think, get him to leave and like drop the situation. I think she was being like apologetic towards the restaurant staff for his behavior. Like she just kind of wanted to diffuse the situation. She was like, I'm sorry, come on, let's just go. But she was visibly upset. She was crying. And that was really it. And he was just, you could feel his temper. He was angry. He was pissed off.
And in the midst of everything you're describing, at any point did they stay and have a meal? Did you see that they ate, or you didn't know?
I'm not positive. All I remember is that they were sitting at the table directly next to us. We were eating. We were in the middle of our meal. We weren't paying attention to anybody else around us. We only took notice of them when they got up and were leaving. I'm almost positive that they were eating, because I remember questioning, did they even pay? Did they even get the bill? Did they, it was so fast. They just, our waitress was also their waitress. We shared a waitress, and she was visibly upset. So I know that she was a part of it. She has to have more information than I do. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sorry if any of these questions are redundant. I just want to make sure I cover all my bases here. At no point did you speak directly to them?
No.
And you're saying that it seemed that they were kicked out of the restaurant. When they left, when they finally left, did you see how they left?
No. I just saw them walk out the front door.
Gotcha. Are there any parts to this that, I haven't asked you, anything that you remember that came to you? I know you said that your partner kind of, woke you up and was like, I remember like why Brian's face is so familiar. Are there any other small details that maybe, have come to you over the past couple of days?
No, it just happened so fast. It was like in the span of like 10, 15 minutes. Yeah, I mean, it's something you definitely don't see every day. It just was kind of startling. I remember feeling bad for her. And I remember looking across the table at Matt, getting his attention to kind of, tell him what was going on. And I just remember telling Matt, like vividly, I remember telling him, this guy is freaking me out. His demeanor, the way he was acting, how persistent he was, he freaks me out.
And this is my last question. What made you post the story once you guys put the pieces together on the fact that you had seen the two of them?
Just, I was kind of like, and that was very in the heat of the moment when I posted that Instagram story. It was within like seconds that we pieced it together. So I didn't really think about it before I posted it. It was mainly just for my friends. I just kind of, thought it was just a crazy story. And I did have hopes that maybe it would get out there and it could help, people piece together the story. I certainly wasn't expecting it to blow up to the degree that it did. But yeah, there really wasn't much thought before posting it. It was just like, oh my God, this happened. We were there. We saw this. We witnessed this. Like, I have to get the word out there. And that's kind of how it happened.